Hello, everyone. We are so glad to be here with you all today. Our first guest up, we've got the wonderful, incredible Miss Trisha Alicia. She is a singer, songwriter, spoken word artist. She does it all, y'all. And she's got her debut album out entitled Pieces. So you guys should go and purchase it everywhere. All right, let's support our sister in Christ. And we are just so excited to go ahead and get started with you. How are things going?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm out here in Nashville, and so things are picking up for the summer, and that's always good because summertime comes around, lots of outdoor activities and festivities and festivals, and so it's a good opportunity to be creative.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Great.
Thank you for having me, by the way.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I was just really grateful that you reached out. So I feel very blessed. Well, for our viewers that don't know you, tell us a bit about yourself. What do you enjoy doing outside of writing?
Oh, man. So I guess by training, by background, I'm a chemical engineer. That's what I went to school for. And so I like to tinker with stuff. I find myself tinkering with things, whether it's like social things like programs or things at my church, or if it's like actual physical things. So that's like, I guess, a hobby outside of writing that doesn't involve music or spoken word, which is kind of a form of writing. I kind of sneak it in under the radar. I really enjoy sports. I played sports in college. I have nothing but brothers. And so sports are pretty much right there, right under writing.
Mm-hmm.
What are your favorite sports? I probably would have. Yeah, I was like, nah. My favorite sport to watch is tennis. Okay. My favorite sport to play is volleyball. And I like track and field too, because, outdoors, Summer Olympics, who doesn't like track?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's me.
Awesome. Well, I did a little cross country in my day. Okay. I don't know if I could do track, though.
I can do cross country. That's a special level of focus and intensity that I just would be like, why am I out here? No, I need to go somewhere. And I wasn't a sprinter by any means, but I just did not cross country. Yeah, my coach tried. And I was like, Coach Raz, no, it's not going to work. So go ahead for you.
No worries. All right. Well, we talked a little bit about some of the kind of writing that you do. If you could reiterate for us what kind of writing you do and what do you most enjoy? What kind of writing do you most enjoy?
Mm-hmm. I am a singer-songwriter. So I write tons and tons of songs, cross-collaborating with other producers and songwriters, but I also do spoken word, and that lends itself to a lot of different things. Depending on the style of spoken words you do, you can kind of be closer to the lyricist side where it kind of sounds like rapping, or you could be more like a storyteller where you're kind of weaving in concepts and tying them to bigger connections. I am not a rapper, even though I try. A little bit. I try a little bit with my friend. Just doesn't go very well. Mm-hmm. So I'm more of the storytelling side of it, where I like to, use the art form to paint pictures and use metaphors and similes and everything else like that. And then I'm also a blogger, so I do get to kind of expand on thoughts occasionally, as the column gets published.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Wow, that is a lot. And I really enjoy spoken word. It's something that I'm not, completely immersed in yet, but it's something that does really intrigue me. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little more of your spoken word. I've listened to some songs on your album. They were really good. But I'd like to hear more of your spoken word. So I'm kind of intrigued about that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when I started writing, I would say that it probably started with poetry in some form, although I wouldn't necessarily call it that. My grandmother is a published poet, and that was my original, I guess, exposure to the art form, and that's how I knew like poetry existed. But she had like beautiful stuff. Like you read it and you could see it directly in front of you, and I'm like, oh man, I don't write like that. Like that's, it's like really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into songwriting where I felt like I could, I guess, have a more of a model to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry, it does have a model, but you kind of have to read a lot and really understand writing forms and rhyming patterns if you're going to stick to some sort of script, I guess, with poetry. So that's why spoken word was kind of more my lane, because you can have free verse. There's not really a lot of rules to how you can put it together. And then you can call it art and be like, well, you don't get my art. That's cool. Art though. So that's probably why I went in.
Awesome. I like that. I do enjoy writing, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, some forms more than others. I'm like you. I love free verse. It just lets you be more free. And
It
just kind
feels
of,
good.
really express what's on your heart. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, who do you primarily write for, and how does your writing help them?
I primarily write for Christians. And that's, I guess, the biggest umbrella that I would say I speak to on a consistent basis. I do some cross collaborations with people who are not Christian artists, but that's not been, I guess, as concentrated as the work that I've done for, Christian blogs or audiences. And the thing that I think resonates most powerfully, or the thing that people tell me, I can't really speak for anybody who doesn't come up to me. I haven't quite gotten that telepathic ESP thing yet. But the thing that people tell me most often is that I can kind of bring them outside of their experiences and show them something that they've seen, but just in a slightly different way. And that's one thing that I really like about, I guess, my writing, because I do find myself, because of either corporate America or the backgrounds that I've been in, or even just the people that I find myself around, challenged to share the gospel in a way that people aren't really used to. I live in the Bible Belt, so a lot of people are familiar with God, but they don't have a relationship, or they've seen so many things that they don't trust Christianity, or they don't trust the church, or people who call themselves Christians. They're like, whatever. So when I have an opportunity to kind of challenge some of those beliefs, it makes me feel good. And they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I got together with some poets in January, and we wrote a piece called Church and Conscious. And it was speaking to kind of this fraction that's happening in the Black community between the Pan-African movement and the Black church. And it was actually probably the hardest cross collaborative effort that I've done, simply because we wanted to represent both perspectives true to their actual form. So even though we're Christians, the majority of us had deep dialogue to people who really believed in the Pan-African movement and had deep distrust for the church, and the church leading the way in the future. And just to be able to present that inside of the church, and then to people who were outside of the church, and still have a similar reception of like, man, that was good. I never thought about this, or I never thought about that, was pretty cool. But ultimately, being that I write for the church, it really helped when people said, I understand their arguments a little bit better, or I feel more comfortable to have those conversations with, my daughter who's around the same age as you guys, or my son who went away to school, and they're hearing all these different things on campus. And now I can at least have the conversation, have the dialogue. We can start someplace where it doesn't sound like I'm thumping the Bible at them, or just trying to give them my form of Christ, or my version, which might be, from the 80s or from the 70s, depending on when they got saved, which isn't bad, but there is a generational divide, and there's things that people deal with that maybe when mom or auntie came to Christ is not exactly the same. So that's what I like about my style of writing, is I feel like I can help have some of these conversations that people either are not trying to have, they might be closed off to have, or they feel, I'm not gonna say ill-equipped, but like maybe underprepared to have.
I like that. It sort of reminds me of something that one of my pastors talked about, how he said Jesus really, when he came on the earth, he came and met people where they are. And that sounds a lot like what you're doing. You're just okay, this is where we are right now at this generation, and this is how I feel best, able to share the gospel with
Mm-hmm.
them. And I think that really resonates with people, is just really meeting them where they are instead of, like you said, thumping them over the head. And, because I've got my experiences with being thumped over the head. And,
Yep.
it
It's
just
not
isn't
cool.
pleasant.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, just kind of makes you want to go the opposite way. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so thank God he kept me. Thank God for grace. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
All right. So tell me, when did you first become interested in songwriting and spoken word?
Man, I would say songwriting. Well, let me back up. Spoken word in its actual form of knowing that this is how it is, and you can actually go out and have a whole theatrical performance with it, probably wasn't until college that I really got into it. I had a really good friend in college named Dion, and there was this like open mic contest. And I was like, I think I want to do something. And she was like, okay, cool. And she like helped me get ready for it and like kind of helped me perform the piece, for lack of a better term, outside of reciting it. And that's when I was like, this is actually really cool, because how I see it, how I feel it, adding these elements of the stage helped it really come across to the listener in the way that just me saying it to you wouldn't have ever gotten it. So probably college for spoken word. In writing in the songwriting format, I would say in high school, that's when I really got more interested in it. I didn't really see it as a viable profession at the time because I didn't have any exposure to anybody who had actually done it. So it was like, okay, I know that, writing in and of itself is a profession, but I thought it was journalism or, an English professor or an English teacher, or even like an actual author of a book. But I never thought like, oh yeah, there are people, like normal people, who make a profession writing songs. And so I went off to engineering school, and I had these songs in a notebook that will never ever get the light of day because they're not very songs. But it started the path in high school, and praise God for evolution. Because I still remember them, but like, no, they're man. I had to light the fuse somehow, I guess.
You might could tweak something, bring it up, to modern times. You might work some magic on it.
The concepts are bad. I don't know about that. You gotta let the past die. We're just gonna leave it. We gotta leave it back there.
I understand. Yeah. I definitely understand. Yeah, I started songwriting too at a young age, and yeah, I've definitely got some songs that I'll just leave in the past too, so I can completely understand.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate you coming.
Yeah. So tell us about some barriers that held you back initially from showcasing your work.
I was extremely shy growing up. I am the youngest of all brothers, and I say that my parents stopped when they got it right. I'm the only girl. They love that joke. It will never die. And so I was always somebody's something. Pat's daughter, Walter's daughter, such and such a sister. Because I'm not going to say have an identity, but you're so frequently associated with other people that kind of sort of sometimes you don't really need to step up and to kind of play the forefront. I'm a pretty hard worker, so I was okay with like being behind the scenes and just kind of doing stuff to help the show go on. But outside of, athleticism, I wasn't really trying to be like as a performer in the front. And so that was a big hurdle to get over. I've always been a leader in terms of just having the ability to kind of like mobilize mobilize people around me, but that doesn't still constitute as being a front face of something or having to be the voice on the microphone. It's like, okay, cool. I'll set it up. Stacey, you go ahead. You got it. You know? So that was a big hurdle for me to get over, to really become an artist, to become comfortable with saying, this is my identity, this is my voice, this is what I stand for. From an artistic integrity standpoint, when you create in your own, you know, notepad, or you create just for yourself, for your own consumption, or maybe your friends and your family, they know you. So it's not a question of, what do you mean by that? Or why did you write that piece? Or even a piece that might come off a certain type of way to somebody who has no idea who you are and what you stand for. And so just understanding that, and being able to create things that I'm like, this is definitely me. That was one hurdle to kind of get over, to say that even in creativity, it's not final. You're always evolving. So even though this might be exactly what I believe right now, being comfortable to write it down and say, yes, this is me. And then in the year to say, that was me, and here I am now, and this is still me.
Yes.
And that is just as much a part of me as this is, but you can't be 13 forever. So the stuff you believe at 13, you don't believe it at 18. And if we can accept that for our own human development, how much more do I have to accept that as a creator? And I get caught up in being, I'm not going to say being perfect, but we want to be the people that we aspire to, or we want to, you know, be those songs on the radio. And we don't know how long it took them to write those songs, but we're measuring ourselves. And I had to kind of get out of all of that, which is mostly mental when you think about it, but it inhibits the creative flow. So that was the biggest chunks to get over for me.
I am so with you. I am so with you, especially when you were talking about, you know, whatever you create today doesn't mean that you're going to feel that same way, you know, 6 months, 12 months down the line. That's definitely something that I have struggled with, because we won't even get into the long story, but the short version of it is, you know, you try so hard to have a certain image, not in a sense of being fake, but you know, you don't want to misrepresent God. You don't want to deter anybody or do anything that, you know, kind of just make somebody else do something they shouldn't do. And so that's, you know, I've questioned certain things, whether or not I'm going to publish it or not. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's what you believe in this particular moment, and you've got to allow yourself the room to grow and be okay with that. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It took a long time for me to separate the two. Because on the one hand, like you said, you're trying to establish this identity, and so you want to go very deep into whatever your identity is. And I felt personally like, right as I was starting to get to the deeper levels, I was like, I want to do more than this. I want to write about more than just this. I have more to say. And I'm like, what? I felt challenged in that, to say, okay, well, do I abandon this? Am I abandoning it? I think as a creative, like, this is my baby.
Right.
I'm abandoning my baby. So one of my mentors said something. He said, you know, all of your pieces, you shouldn't look at them as babies. They should be employees. And when I really got that, I was like, man, thank you so much.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to write that one down.
Like, you know, an employee that you want them on your team, but sometimes, you know, some people are going to be there for 25 years, and you're going to take them with you, and they're going to work for the same company, and that's fine. But most people are going to have 4, 5, 6, 10 different companies that they work for in their lifetime, and that's cool too. So the faster you unattach yourself or disattach yourself from the content that you're creating, it almost gives the actual content an ability to be the best it can be, and simultaneously you can be free to be whatever God is calling you to be in that moment. That was probably one bit of revolutionary advice that I will always remember in that particular season.
Wow. I like that. So then, you would say the way you overcame these barriers was probably what?
Ooh, honestly, a lot of writing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I joined a writers group, and just doing exercises with them and listening to other people create, it naturally, writing does what it does. It purges you. It's therapeutic. When you get with other writers, you see their struggles, you see their insecurities, you can air your own. And just that process of putting the pen to the paper or the fingers to the keys really helped move me as an inchworm down the path and away from this thing that I felt was so final into this other space, because I had so many things that, I mean, when you have a writing prompt, that's not a piece. You're never going to read that to anyone as a finished piece, but you have 100 or so of those, and you're like, man, you know, that piece that I wrote in 90 seconds, I didn't think could do that 3 weeks ago, but now I'm able to do that. And just that process of creativity moved me down the path. So, and it's the same, I guess, with anything. If you have writer's block, the best remedy for writer's block is to write.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter what you're writing, just write. And eventually your muscle will kick in, and you just have to trust it.
Yes, I definitely agree. Has happened to me lots of times where I just knew I had something deep down inside, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't get it out. I can't get it out. And like you said, you just keep pushing and it will definitely come out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, who are some writers that have helped shape your writing?
Oh man, in the immediate, I would say probably year, it's been the writers in my writing group, a couple of poets that I kind of show work to. I like to call it my half-baked cake. So it's like not yet done, but I don't mind, you know, if you want to taste a little bit of the batter, that's fine. You can tell me what you think about it, or inviting people into the kitchen during the process. So those writers, and then the people that I write with, from a songwriting perspective, they've probably influenced me and been the catalyst to a lot of growth that I've had in the past, even 6 months, really. The spoken word writers group came before I started working with a particular group of songwriters and producers, and both have equally stretched me and grown me. Prior to that, I did a lot of reading. And so I can't necessarily, I struggle to compare a finished, polished work with kind of something that's in the rough. I don't necessarily know what, you know, say Nikki Giovanni's process is to get her pieces done, even though the finished work is very inspirational to me, or a particular, you know, style of spoken word might be inspirational to me. I find for my own personal mental health, I can't get into too much of the glitter because I'm lost in the shine, and then I'm like comparing my pieces subconsciously to the finished work. So I just enjoy them, consume them, and then put them away without thinking too hard or processing them. But the people that I can see on a regular basis, I can see how they process, how they work through songs, how they're methodical. Two people in particular, one's a spoken word artist, one is an actual songwriter. When they get stuck, they actually literally like will stand completely up and start pacing the room and like going through whatever it is that they're going through and talking through it. And it's the funniest thing, because I thought it was only my spoken word friend that did that. And then my songwriter friend, I was like, huh, we know each other. That's amazing to me. But it kind of triggered the fact that, you know, it's our whole body that's involved in creativity. And sometimes just like getting out of your routine will give you some inspiration. For them, they were physically getting out of whatever mental space they were in by standing up and just moving around a little bit. And typically they would get an idea that would be the impetus to another idea. So those are probably the writers that in the right now have been really, really, really inspirational. For my project, I've always liked Antonio Neal's work, and I got to work with him. And he did a musicians university where he talked about creativity and songwriting, and he talked about his process. And that was really inspirational because he's a very transparent writer. He talks about, you know, what goes on in his life. He talks about not necessarily too much detail of like his marriage and things like that, but he shares his difficulties, or he shares what's on his heart. And to see an accomplished songwriter who is still so very transparent and so very touchable to people who are not, you know, Dove Award winners or high up the totem pole is huge for me, because it shows what humility looks like no matter what.
I love that. Love that. Vulnerability. That's something that I really gravitate towards, because, you know, we live in a time now when everyone is, you know, Instagram perfect, and
Yes.
it's, you know, it can get very disheartening. You know, like you
Yes.
said, it makes you sometimes feel like you've got to compare your unfinished stuff to somebody else's polished looking life or works or whatever. But I love that. I believe there's such a need for transparency today. And it can be such a blessing to so many other people who, you know, feel like they're always going to be half baked. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just think it's a great thing. So I love what you're doing, and sounds like you've got some really good writer friends in your corner.
Yeah, I mean, blessed to find them. I still don't really know how everything kind of transpired and came about, but I'm really happy it did, because I'm so much better. I'm like, how did, okay. And when I sit and talk to them, they're like, well, I knew this about this person and that about that. I'm like, but it still doesn't explain the connect, like how this happened with everything. But when God says all things will work together, I guess that's part of it. Like, you don't have to know how y'all got together. Y'all together.
Right.
Go right.
Amen. So you've got all these wonderful writer friends in your corner. Tell me, what's the best writing advice anyone's ever given you?
Oh, the best writing advice. Man, okay. I think, well, I'll use this as a prelude to get to the best writing advice. One of my mentors said, basically, plant your field before you build your house. And the concept behind that is to say, you know, whatever you think God has purposed in your heart to do, sow it before you feel like you need to build upward. And I think, oh man, I feel like I have this book. It's so corny. I'm a nerd, right? Because I'm engineer. But I write down stuff that people tell me. Like, I legit write it down. I like it. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, it's so many good things on here. I'm like looking through it. I'm like, that was one thing, but that's like more, I guess, business minded. All right, I'll say this, because I'm not gonna, like, some of those have stories behind them. The one thing that I do like on there is, it basically was saying, like, your creativity is kind of like a delicate flower, and so treat it as such, right? Like, obviously, it's going to be rare, so like, treat yourself as rare. Like, we sometimes idolize the people that we love, and we're like, oh man, he's so dope, and how did you get that? And I mean, they could be writing, not that they're bad, but they might be writing about some real regular stuff that you might be able to write if you just kind of stepped away from kind of fantasizing about these people and did your own thing, and treating yourself just as rare as the people that we look up to and that we model. Like, they may have the platform, but at the same time, God created you too, right? So that's one side of it. But then the other side of it is that, being that it is delicate, treat yourself as such, but then also understand that, you know, in its rarity, you're going to have things that people don't always understand. And as long as you're not in it for the hand clap, you're going to be okay. And to, again, understand that it's delicate, it's rare, but it's still valuable, it's still necessary. And that helped me, for me, that advice helped me really trust my creative voice and my own instinct. Through our experiences, through, you know, where we live, when we grew up, and who we are and how we think, that means that even if you and I write about the same exact brown table,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to come out with something completely different than me, even if we use the same exact 7 words. I mean, that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of words to like use as a prompt.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's just that instinct inside to say, this is right. This is me. This is my pen. Came from that your creativity is a delicate flower, so treat it as such was probably the best on my little page of things that I go back to when I feel like I'm in the fire and
Mm-hmm.
nothing makes sense.
Oh, I like that. It reminds me of last year was when I really started being more intentional. I've been blogging for longer than that, but last year was when I started being more intentional. And, I've met some really incredible writers, 2 of them in particular, and I just look at their work in amazement. One of them is a poet, and the other is more of a personal essayist. And
Mhm.
I remember just looking at their work like, oh my gosh, they are just so gifted.
Right.
Man, they just make my writing look like, mm.
Now you in grade school.
Right, right. But like you said, you just have to get to this place where you're like, okay, God's given me my own special anointing, and I've got to walk in that and trust Him in my process and in my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I did my vision board for this year, that's one thing that I included on there was cars in different lanes. And that was my reminder to
I like
stay
that.
in my own lane and just trust God while I'm in my own lane. So I like
Yes,
that. I like that.
that's good.
Um, so you've given us some great advice that you've received. What advice do you have for other writers who are they're still afraid, they want to be authentic in their brand and in their writing, but they're just still too afraid? So what advice would you give to them?
First and foremost is something that I say all the time, and it is creativity is a muscle. Just like you go to the gym, you
Mm-hmm.
would expect to get on the treadmill for 5 seconds and then be skinny. And nobody in the world is going to say, that ain't work. I ain't doing it anymore. You wouldn't dare say that. If you were trying to lose weight, you're like, maybe you just didn't stick with it long enough. Maybe you need to walk
Mm-hmm.
on the treadmill every day instead of
Mm-hmm.
5 seconds one day. So creativity is a muscle. Use it. Use it often. Write every single day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be major, but like write every single day. It could be you saw a grocery, like one of my writing prompts the other day was grocery list.
Mm-hmm.
And from grocery list, I ended up writing about like ended up being like a girl who's about to get married, and she was like at the grocery store buying stuff in preparation for her wedding. Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, it doesn't have to be complicated, but creativity is the muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it's going to be. And the stronger that your muscle is, the more confident that you'll be when it's time for you to present your own work. The second thing is approach people who write to write with you. You don't have to, be invited to some special writers group. If it's 2 people, that one person writes poetry, another person writes I don't know, ads for the local catalog, they're still writers, and you guys can still gain from each other by just meeting together and going through a book on writing. It will make you all stronger. So work your muscle, find some people who are like-minded. Again, they don't have to be the same type of artist. And then the third thing is challenge yourself to perform in front of people. Start with your friends and your family. Even if it's that writing group, have them hold you accountable. Say, okay, at the end of the month or at the end of 6 months, whatever your timeline is, I want to be able to do Abacadabra.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is, stick to it. And I'm telling you, if you have people who hold you accountable, you're going to progress much faster than you would if you just stayed in your own house and listening to your own voice and bashing yourself about what you didn't do right, or just
Mm-hmm.
whatever the cycle is. you gotta short circuit it. You gotta get outside of it. And the best way to do that is to interject other people who are just as probably creatively insecure as you are. No matter how dope you think their stuff is, you get
Mm-hmm.
all these people in a room and you start writing about something, somebody's gonna be like, Well, I had written this piece, but I don't really know about it. So why don't you go ahead and go first? And so you'll see everybody is on this same journey together. We are creative people. We're emulating God, and I mean, He created us to be in community together. So use it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. I mean, those are the biggest tips that coming from a person who used to be shy, like that really helped me. Like people helped me, who I'm not even gonna say they saw something in me, but it was just, hey, yeah, sure, that sounds like a cool idea. All right, let's do
Mm-hmm.
it.
I agree. People, I've had that issue of, I'm not going to say I've been a shy person necessarily, because I'm a pretty big talker, but just when it comes to certain things like publishing your writing or getting your writing out there, that can be kind of personal. And so, it's made me shy in that regard. But
Yep,
like you said,
absolutely.
just networking with other people, even if they're of different genres, and just talking with each other has really been a tremendous help. So I definitely agree with
Mhm.
networking with people.
And one thing I will say that's been the benefit for me working with other types of writers. One of the writers in the writing group that I'm a part of, she writes screenplays and she writes actual plays. And so she has this really dope ability to like develop characters in like 3 lines. And I remember the first time there was a writing prompt and she like drew us all into this story, and it turned out, I think the writing prompt was like cigar or something. And it turned
Mm-hmm.
out that the woman that we were like so empathizing with, she was like the person who offed the guy. And I'm
Oh.
like, no, I didn't even see that coming. But in that 5 minutes that she had to write, we were like so glued into her story. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I want to do better at developing people that I introduce into my stories or my
Mm-hmm.
spoken word, or just having that mindset. And I started asking her, how do you do this? How did you think about that? Like what drew your mind in that direction? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the type of stuff that working with people in community is going to draw out of you, because you can see somebody do something totally different and you're like, huh, that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. How did you do that one little thing that got me so enthralled into your piece of work?
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So that's what I would say. That is a side benefit from working with people in different genres.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is definitely true. Um, Now, I know you've released your album Pieces last
Mhm.
year.
Yes.
Tell us, what was your favorite song that you wrote?
Oh, that's not fair. That is not fair. Let's like pick your favorite kid. Who's gonna get all the inheritance money? You only can get the one. It's like, man, really?
Mm-hmm.
So okay, I have my favorite like up tempo, and then my favorite slow, and
Okay.
then my favorite spoken word. So my favorite up tempo piece is Promises. That was the lead single that had Kenton Jones on it.
Mm-hmm.
I literally remember when I wrote that song. I wrote it before I even started writing the actual content for Pieces. My favorite, I guess, slow song on the project is called You Told Me. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
actually be releasing that as a single in June of this year. And my favorite spoken word piece is actually Heart Song.
Okay.
But the funny thing about Heart Song is that, well, when we went into focus group testing for all the tracks on the album, Gold Rags, which is on the CD, I was like, that piece ain't making it.
Mm-hmm.
And my project manager goes, well, why not? I hated the writing process for Gold Rags. It was so hard. I actually have 2 versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot to like write Gold Rags. And I was just over it. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
completely over it. I was like, nope, we ain't doing it. Not. And he was like, well, I actually like what you're talking about. Like, I think you should put it on there. And I was like, well, we're going to send it to testing. In my mind, I'm like, this song ain't going to test well. It's going to be up there anyway. Surprise, surprise. Gold Rags actually out-tested Heart Song in terms of both focus groups that it went to. And so I will call Gold Rags my unofficial favorite since it tested well, but it was like the surprise, like how we sometimes judge our creativity and then somebody
Mm-hmm.
else, and they're like, actually, this thing that you were about to throw away and put in the
Mm-hmm.
trash, I like
Mm-hmm.
that one. So
Yes.
even though Heart Song is my favorite, because I just like I like what Gold Riggs is talking about too. But I like heart songs, I guess, writing process. But so Grace, spoken word wise, it's not the same structure as the other two spoken word pieces, but the analogy on there I actually love. It's basically taking the concept of grace that Christ has given to us and comparing it to a bird that's been locked in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it talks about how we forfeit our grace in a way that the bird inside of the cage will stay in the cage, even though like the doors are open and it can fly away. It just doesn't. Like we have grace and we can do all these amazing things, but we just don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like why? It's just like the bird, right? Like why you ain't flying?
Right.
You can go. Like you don't got to be here. You don't have to be in the cage anymore. Like you have wings. They work. Why don't you fly?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to ask myself that same question every so often. Like, why are you dealing with this? Why are you putting up with this? Why are you letting this, battle happen? Like he's made you more than, so rock with it, lean into it, lean into grace, and just go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know that's long-winded. You asked me for one thing, but I couldn't pick a favorite kid.
No worries. Well, where do you see your writing taking you in the next 5 years?
Okay, that's I'm a goal-oriented person, so this is prime up my alley. I definitely see songwriting doing a lot more. It's really good to be in Nashville right now for me. Anyway. I can't speak for everybody else who moves here to pursue music. I wasn't really in music when I first got down to Nashville. I was doing the engineering thing and wasn't really thinking about music. So to transition in the past, I think it's been about two and a half years now, being in the actual industry, has been really, really good. So, I see myself doing a lot more songwriting with placements and things like that. On my artist side, there is definitely some more albums that'll be released. So that kind of process will continue, and I'll be able to, release the things that God gives me for the people that they're meant to touch. And then for spoken word, those are kind of two different audiences in some regard. I think being Bible Beltway, there aren't as many churches as in the Northeast that have found a good way to fuse the traditional songs along with spoken word in an effective manner. I strongly believe that we emulate God when we create. And so it's not just the people who are the musicians. It's not just the person who can sing the song, but if he's placed us all in the same body, that means that as spoken word artists, I have a function too, just like the person who's singing. And I recognize that, singing is a much more widespread form of praise to God, but I'm looking forward to continued integration of spoken word, especially in the church on a more regular, consistent basis. And I see it a lot, but I want to see it more. I want to see it more because I think, spoken word has a unique ability to take this huge topic and drill it down into 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And it's creative and it's deep and it's touching. Not saying we're doing away with preachers, but it's just a different way to reach people. And I think it has a place just like, the songs have a place. So I look forward to helping bridge some of that in the way that I can when I go to minister at churches or to festivals or congregations, just helping to expose people to the things that God has given me.
I agree. Like you said, we've got, everyone has different gifts, and God certainly gave it to us for a purpose. So I look forward to seeing you fuse that more into more of our traditional way of praise and worship. So that's exciting. You've got a lot of good stuff going on.
Well, man, God is, he does stuff. And I'm like, how is this going to happen? Sometimes he's like, I feel like it's like, don't believe me, just watch. Like, I feel like he does that sometimes. Like, you don't gotta believe me, just watch. I got this.
Yep. And he always shows out.
Yeah.
better than we could have imagined.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Well, we have enjoyed our time with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before we go, tell all of our viewers how we can keep in touch with you in social media or wherever.
Sure. If you're in Nashville, come holla at me, homie. So on social media, I am on pretty much all the major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I guess since Twitter bought Periscope, it's the same. But I'm still on
Mm-hmm.
Periscope, and I'm a sporadic Snapchatter, very sporadic. But all of my names are the same. It's just I am Trisha Alicia. So I am TrishaAlicia. If you spell it another way, you're not gonna get me. That's where I'm at on all social media networks. And then TrishaAlicia.com, TrishaAlicia.com is my website. And I'm on YouTube too, again, Trisha Alicia. But if you pretty much are looking for me, that's where I'm at.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. And we will be checking with you on social media everywhere. And don't forget, everyone, if you have not purchased her album Pieces, please make sure you do go and support her and do that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Bye.